One of the most important things about any fishing rod and reel is making sure you have your drag set correctly. If you don't, it's going to cost you either fish that break your line or you may not be able to pull them in. I'm Captain Chris Myers of Central Florida Sight Fishing Charters. I've been a fishing guide here in Florida for 21 years, and setting the drag is something I check before every single trip. I'm going to show you on a spinning reel in particular how we do this, but you can use this same technique whether you're using a baitcaster or just about any other fishing reel. Of course, one of the cool things about spinning reels is you get this awesome drag clicker sound when you do catch a fish. And I teach fishing lessons as well here, and I always encourage people to bring their own stuff so I can see how they have it set up. And one of the first things I do is check their drag, and I find some people that have this thing locked all the way down and some people that have almost zero drag on here, because unfortunately this does not have any markings on it to show you where to put it or what it means or how much you have or how much you don't. So it's kind of random when you first get these, figuring this system out. Unlike this particular fly reel that has a dial on it with the numbers, I've never seen a spinning reel that has those numbers here, at least on the top drag reels. You will find some other reels have a drag knob down here below. They're usually the less expensive models. Most spinning reels have a clicker on the top, and just like putting in a screw, it's righty tighty, lefty loosey. So this tightens it up, and eventually it'll get where you can't turn it anymore, and you turn it the other way and it gets ridiculously loose that it'll come off with almost no pressure at all, which you obviously don't want. How you set this drag depends on the strength of your line, what situation you're fishing. Am I fishing with heavy cover where I have to pull something out from trees, bushes, bridges, etc.? Am I in open water? Am I fishing for very large fish that might take all of my line? If I'm fishing for smaller fish, tiny fish, this drag is not a one size fits all setting. You need to determine, do I have very little room for that fish to run? I need to get on him right away, and if it breaks my line, well, he was going to break my line getting in the structure anyway. I need a tighter drag. Open water, I got plenty of time to play it, and maybe I'm in a boat, huge fish, I could chase him down if he's getting my line. I can put it a little bit looser. If I'm very small fish, I can have it pretty loose all together all the time. But this drag always sets, but when you set it, again, there is no numbering system so that you know where you had it. You can put it there again another time. And what you need to get used to is setting it correctly, then pulling on it, feel what that is, and learn this is 3 pounds of drag. This might be 5 pounds of drag. This is 10, etc. Here's how I set this drag. I take a simple luggage scale. You could use a fishing scale if you have one. Digital is usually a little better and easier, but you're going to need a helper for this in most situations, unless you have a way where you can stick this in a rod holder, say on your boat, or if you have one of those that go in the ground, there's PVC rod holders. Otherwise, you need to be holding the line and holding the reel and have someone at the other end reading the scale. What I do is I tie a perfection loop in the end of my leader. And if you're not familiar with that, I'll leave a link in the description on how I tie that. Then you can take that loop and put it on your scale, have the other person get away from you, get at least 20-30 feet away, because most of the fish we're hooking aren't 3 feet off our rod tip. So get out there at a reasonable fishing distance. And when you are checking this, you want to be checking it with a bend in the rod, just as if you were fighting a fish. Yes, there are certainly times when I hook a fish and that fish is taking off and I point it at them and I let them have it without the rod, the line pulling on the guides, bending the rod. But there are plenty of situations where you're pulling that fish in, you got a huge bend in your rod, and that fish takes off. You want to have your drag set for that occasion, because that is when a lot of fish get broken off. Have that person get away, turn that scale on, have it hooked up, and then pull, have them start walking backwards until you see line coming off your spool. The instant that line comes off the spool, ask them what the reading is. You want to set your drag in general, not for all situations, but in general, I set mine 20 to 30% of the line's breaking strength. So this is 10-pound braid. I usually set it 2 or 3 pounds. If I was fishing in really heavy structure around bridges, I probably wouldn't be using 10-pound test. I would probably be using 15 or 20, maybe even 30 for big fish or higher. Then I would bump that up because they're gonna get in those pilings right away and break me off. I might need to set it at 40 or 50%. You need to know what is the drag capability of your reel. The more inexpensive the reel, the less drag power they have. There are few spinning reels that get over 25 pounds of drag, which is a ton. If you're fishing with a spinning reel with 50-pound test and you set it at 50% of the breaking strength and your reel can only handle 18, 19 pounds of drag, you're not going to be able to crank that thing down that hard. And it's a good way to ruin the gears on your reel, cranking fish in with that heavy of a drag on most average size spinning reels. Keep it down at 20 to 30% for most open water fishing situations. The instant you have that set and you see, okay, here I got it exactly at 30%. Take your hand, come up here above the spool, not right next to it, come up between your spool and your first guide, wrap it around there a couple times, pull some off, get a feel for that. The more times you do that, then soon you will not ever need that scale. You can just get up here and pull on it. Yep, that's what I need. You'll also find out, is your drag properly lubricated or is it sticky where it takes a whole bunch for it to get going, and once it gets going, that number drops down. You may need to have someone service your drag, put new drag washers in there. The older and more worn out they get, you get a whole bunch of startup friction. And when that fish hits initially and you go to set the hook, if that startup friction is higher than what you really want your drag set at, that's when you're going to break fish off. If you're fishing in open water, an advantage of having a lighter drag is I really never have to worry about fish breaking off on that hook set or their sudden surges. And if I need drag with any spinning reel, I can instantly add that by putting my finger on this spool right here, because that always turns. So I can lock it down to 100% drag where there's no line coming off at all. I can put a little, I can put a lot. Get used to putting your hand there and adding or taking away drag. If you need extra stuff with your finger, I never come up here and start cranking this dial in the middle of a fight because I don't know how much I'm adding. Here I know exactly how much I'm adding. Use that luggage scale to learn to help set your drag. You can do this with any reel. If you have a baitcaster, the same technique applies. You still have a drag reel. You can still use your thumb on a baitcaster to slow that down, just like I use my finger on the spool with the spinning reel. Set your drag properly, you'll lose a lot fewer fish.